Blakey was an American jazz drummer. His career started in the 1940s, and he started working with quite a few people, but this included Charlie Parker, Thelonious Monk, and Dizzy Gillespie. In the 50s, he formed a collective called the Jazz Messengers with Horace Silver. Now, they had various different names to start off with, but they usually had the word messenger in them, and they eventually settled on this title, the Jazz Messengers. Horace Silver left after a year. And as I say, it started as a collective of contemporaries, but it turned into an incubator for new talent. And some of the talent that have come through the Jazz Messengers include, well, I'm going to list the names that I've heard of. So Freddie Hubbard, Wayne Shorter, Hank Mobley, Chick Corea, and Wynton Marsalis. And the Jazz Messengers continued until 1990 when Art died.
Hi, my name's Dan. So this is a live album of jazz, and it's my first time listening to it, I'm pretty sure. And as you'll see from the name, it's the volume 2 of a pair of albums that came out. The other one, strangely enough, is called The Night at Birdland Volume 1, and that comes later in the list. So on this occasion, he's billed as the Art Blakey Quintet. And so it's instrumental jazz. We've got Art Blakey, who's the drummer on the drums. Good thing having a drummer on the drums. Horace Silver on piano, who I've heard of. Clifford Brown on trumpet, who I've heard of. And an alto sax player and bassist, who I've not heard of. And it was recorded at Birdland, which is a classic New York jazz venue that used to exist. Apparently still does, but not quite on the same site. Interestingly, it was the very first thing on the album is an introduction to the band by a voice that I felt that I recognised, and I had to go looking it up and try and work out who it was. So back in the 90s-ish, there was a genre of music that kind of broke out called acid jazz, which was a mixture of rave, that kind of music, but also bringing in jazz elements and jazz samples particularly. And there was a track called Counterloop by a band or outfit called US3 or Us3 that I had on a compilation album and probably still do and really enjoyed. And again, still do. But it starts with this introduction about, ladies and gentlemen, we've got something special here at Birdland for you. So first of all, I kind of recognised that it was Birdland. Secondly, I thought, I know that voice. It sounds just like the voice at the start of that. And I went and checked it out, and I was absolutely correct, because the person who was doing this introduction on this album is the same person who has done that introduction that was used in Cantaloupe. Is in fact the introduction that is at the start of Volume 1 of A Night at Birdland. And this has been done by a guy called Pee Wee Marquette, who apparently was quite a character in the jazz scene. For all sorts of reasons. Anyway, let's get into this album itself. Apart from there are some slower bits to this, mostly I would describe this as hot jazz. So I once came across a book in which there was a character who was a jazz enthusiast, and his girlfriend, who was less of a jazz enthusiast, described jazz as having 3 types: hot jazz, cool jazz, and what time does the tune start? And hot jazz, since then, I read that, I've thought of hot jazz as being fast and jumping kind of jazz, and cool jazz as being kind of the slow and sultry late night kind of jazz. After doing quite a few of these reviews now, I have learned that hot jazz is actually more technically East Coast jazz, and cool jazz is West Coast jazz. But I think the general kind of classification of fast and slow does kind of come to bear somewhat. Please correct me if I'm wrong in a comment. I'd love to hear from you if you want to correct anything that I say in any of my videos. So last time I reviewed a jazz album, which wasn't that long ago, I vowed that I was going to start to be less concerned about the technicalities of the jazz and more with the listening experience. And so I'm going to try and do that. This is described as hard bop. I can't tell you exactly what that means. In fact, I'm not going to attempt to. I do seem to find that jazz albums that I like often seem to turn out to be hard bop. I did like this. I like this quite a lot. It's got a nice feel to it. It bounces along nicely. It's got that kind of feel to it. There's some nice playing. There's quite a lot showing off, but it is jazz. And, if you're going to show off musically, then jazz is the music to do it in. Or if you're a jazz player, you have to show off. That's what it's all about. Please don't take offence at that, any jazz players. It's certainly about demonstrating your skill. That's right. It's couch it like that. I would say that this album could do with, or the version that I was listening to could do with a bit of a clean up, kind of remaster, especially the piano, I think, which sounds both kind of muffled and tinny at the same time, which basically means the top end and the bottom end have been reduced. It could have a richer sound to it, and remasters often do that. I've listened to quite a lot of jazz albums that are remastered, and they're often done really, really well. There's a guy called Rudy Van Gelder who's done some really good remasters. But that's off topic. Anyway, I like this album. I liked it quite a lot. And as always, I'd like to ask you to tell me what you think of this album, what you think about Blakey, what you think about my theories on jazz, what you think about any of the players here, what you think about Birdland. If you know anything about Pee Wee Marquette, fill that in. Great. That's it from me for now.